I'm really excited to be playing the wizard tonight. This is gonna be lots of fun.
Yeah, but you know what all of his spells do, right?
Yeah, I have the spell book right here.
Yeah, right, but did you read it?
Read?
Read? Oh, come on, you guys. You never told me that I'd have to read them too. Can't I just waggle the wand about and have our editor do some special effects?
Holy crap! You are such an idiot!
Yeah, haven't you seen how much time the wizard spends reading his spellbook? Short rests, long rests, downtime. Indeed. Back in my day, we would skip school just to read up on our D&D spells.
Did you really think that you'd be able to play a wizard without learning what the spells do?
Okay, I don't think I'm gonna be able to do this. Can we just get the wizard back?
Now hold on, guys. I have players in my games all the time who don't know what their spells or class abilities do. And they do just fine. For instance, the rogue here is always forgetting the conditions under which sneak attack is applied, and the fighter always forgets the DC of his battle maneuvers, and the druid never has the stat blocks handy for the 2 animals that he is always shape-changing into. And the old man commoner, well, he doesn't even know what class he is half the time. So I see no reason that our wonderful barbarian here shouldn't be able to play a wizard for tonight, even if he doesn't know what the spells do.
Holy crap! We're screwed!
Welcome to the DM Lair. I'm Lucar, and I've been a dungeon master since players first began casting spells, and then, after casting them, discovering the finer details about what the spells actually do. And on this channel, I give practical dungeon master advice that you can implement at your game table. That was a dig at players who cast spells and don't know what their spells do. Just a little one. Yeah. Anyway, today in the Lair, I'll be telling you a story from my Ancient Dragon Patreon game. These are the guys who pay good money to play D&D with me, where a TPK was looming on the horizon, and a player decided to cast a certain spell that, perhaps wasn't the best idea. And if this seems like I'm picking on him and calling him out, that's not really my intention here. You see, all of us, including me, have been there. We make a decision in the game that turns out not to have been the best one, and then later all of our friends rib us for it, and it becomes the source of camaraderie that draws us closer together, even years removed from the actual event. You see, sometimes our mistakes and failures can be just as much fun in the long run, or in the immediate run, as our successes. Oh, and by the way, if you'd like to watch some of the D&D games I run for my own groups, you can follow me over on Twitch, link below, where I stream my Curse of Strahd game and the one-shots I do from time to time. There's also a link below to my second YouTube channel, the DM Lair Streams, where I upload the game sessions after the fact for folks who may miss the live streams. Okay, let's get into this D&D story before people start freaking out at me in the comments for not getting to the point, which I'm sure is already happening. This story begins with the party responding to Chittering Lucy's Slapgross invitation to have a chat with her where they negotiate the terms of their deaths. You see, she had left the heads of some loved ones on the countertop of the bar in the tavern that belongs to them, telling them that if they didn't come to a certain section of the sewers immediately to have a little chat with her, she'd begin decapitating one person every day. And of course it was a trap, of course the players knew it was a trap, but they didn't really have a choice but to go. So they get to the sewers and they're exploring parts here and there, and they come to one part where they're about to investigate a door, and the door bursts open. 2 ogres come out, one of them with a massive battering ram and the other with this chain that it's twirling about and whipping at them. And it's a great little encounter. It was terrifying, I'm sure, for my players, but they defeated those 2 ogres in short order and kept on going. And then next they came to a little section of the sewers where they literally found a cult of Asmodeus in the middle of having their high priest give them a sermon about the wonders of cruel Asmodeus. And my players were like, in that moment, like, okay, these are bad guys, we should totally just like kill them, but they got into this conversation with them instead. And the long and short of it is that they decided, they managed to convince these cult members to lead them to their boss somewhere else in the sewers. And as they're coming out of this room with these cultists, it occurs to them that this is probably a very bad idea. These cultists could easily be leading them into another group, another encounter over here, and then they could find themselves overwhelmed. And they were planning on wanting to kill them anyway because they're cultists of Asmodeus. So ultimately they just decided to kill them. They attacked them, burning hands and stuff, and it was great, and they died. The cultists died. And they found on the cultist leader a spellbook with an inscription from Solgadath, the evil sorcerer that had killed one of the player's parents and forced him to kill his own brothers. And this right here is an example of how I work backstory elements into my game. You see, the player who was playing Krindar, who that backstory element pertained to, heard about this and was more than likely like, oh, hey, this is from my backstory. This cultist leader somehow knows Solgadath. And if the players hadn't killed the cultist, Krindar might have been able to speak with her and get more information about her connection to Solgadath. But of course that didn't happen. You know, if you kill them all, if you just go all murder hobo and everything, sometimes you miss out on key bits of information that might be interesting for you. And then after they defeated the cultists, they kept on going through the dungeon, and they were ambushed by an Orthon. Now, of course, I didn't tell them that it was an Orthon. I just described it as this demonic creature with tusks and I think maggots crawling over its body. And the thing with an Orthon is that it has this invisibility field that it can use as a bonus action to become invisible until it attacks or it is hit by an attack. So I had this Orthon invisible, attack them, become invisible, and then retreat, and then use its bonus action to become invisible again. And it kept on using these same hit and run tactics on my players' characters. My goal with this Orthon was to present a different sort of challenge to my players. You see, what I wanted to have happen is the Orthon would use some guerrilla warfare tactics, attack a couple times, turn invisible, and then go to a different part of the dungeon. And then the players weren't able to actually defeat the thing. They would go to that different part of the dungeon, engage with some other encounters there. The Orthon would ping them a couple more times, turn invisible, and then get out of there. And then so forth and so forth throughout this entire dungeon. The idea was to have this Orthon plaguing them. And so the challenge to the players would then be, how do we deal with an enemy like this? What do we do? Now, of course, all of my grand plans didn't become quite so grand because they were able to pin the Orthon down and kill him, I think the second or third time that they encountered him. But the point here is that including interesting challenges like that in your adventures can be very cool for your players. Even though in the moment they were all kind of freaking out a little bit and frustrated because they couldn't get this stinking guy who kept on nailing them for a good amount of damage each time. And then they came upon this large chamber with this pool of water filled with little demonic creatures called dretches, although of course I didn't tell them their names. This is something that I do in my games. I almost never tell my players the actual names of the creatures that they're fighting. I just use some sort of, I use a description for them instead. And then I'll usually give them some sort of pet name that we can identify them as. And the thing is that the sound of combat from fighting that Orthon alerted all of these dretches, and the dretches began to come out of this water in waves, large waves. There were lots of dretches attacking my players' characters. And then one of my players, playing a cleric called Kasim, used a wonderful little spell called Spirit Guardians. And he brought up a awesome area of effect of these spectral rats that were just swarming around him. And as the dretches came on stupidly into that area of effect, they were dying almost immediately, every single one of them. Spirit Guardians is an amazing spell. Kasim used it effectively to deal out hundreds of points of damage to all of these dretches, turning what might have been a somewhat challenging encounter into an easy encounter. Very, very, very easy and very, very satisfying, I might add. But this is okay. This is perfectly fine. You want your players to feel awesome. You want them to have these sort of heroic moments where they can deal crazy amounts of damage with a single spell to all of these monsters. Give them their wins. Let them have these awesome moments that will balance out the other parts of the adventure that are more challenging and much, much tougher. And I knew that there were some of these moments coming, so okay, you can have this one. Have your Spirit Guardians. Let it kill all of these dretches because I have some special thing prepared for you that you might not like too much. Okay, so they're proceeding through the dungeon. After that, they come to these 3 demonic creatures called Rudderkin that are ambling at them, and they have a little confrontation. They defeat them fairly easily and keep on moving through the dungeon. And this is when they come upon my doozy. They come into a small room that has some fungi formed around a door frame. And through this door frame, they can see that it is a portal to some desolate landscape, likely the Abyss or the Nine Hells or something. And they can see more, like hundreds more of these demonic creatures, these Rudderkin, shambling toward them, ambling at them, running at this portal, slowly, fastly, whatever. But eventually they're going to come through this portal. And so my players, rightly so, decide that it's probably the appropriate thing to close this portal. And as they approach this portal with the intention of somehow figuring out a way to close it, the fungi around the portal begins to move. Pseudopods peel out from it, and it begins lashing at them with an amazing amount of fury, dealing out an amazing amount of damage. You see, I was using a creature called an Alkalith, which is from Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, I believe, and yeah, this is a pretty high CR monster. It was a deadly encounter. There are a few things about this Alkalith that make it far more challenging and far more deadly than you might believe at first glance. So my players were not doing too well. This Alkalith was tearing them apart. Several of them had dropped to 0 hit points and then been raised by their intern Cookie to come back with lingering injuries that were also impeding their ability to fight in the battle. By the way, this lingering injury idea that I just mentioned here, this is something that I have homebrewed for 5th edition because I feel that when players drop to 0 hit points and then can get healing worded back up to basically full fighting strength, there's something a little bit lackluster about that idea. It's like you almost just died, you were at death's door, but with just a tiny bit of healing, you were back at full fighting strength with no ill effects. So I created my lingering injury system so that when you drop to 0 hit points and then come back, there is a drawback to that. There is a negative effect that you will experience, which of course makes dropping to 0 hit points a undesirable thing to let happen to your character in the game, making death and death's door a little bit more meaningful. By the way, there is a link below to my lingering injury system on Drive-Thru-RPG if you want to pick it up, and it is free too, by the way. So yeah, the challenge rating of this creature was very deceptive. The fight was way harder than I had intended. I mean, I knew it was going to be deadly, but I didn't think it was going to be this deadly. I mean, literally, we were looking at probably one more round, and it was almost assuredly going to be a TPK. Now, we ended that session mid-combat with the party on the verge of TPKing by all appearances. And the players had 3 agonizing weeks to think over their options and discuss how they might not die. Now, I usually don't like to end a session mid-combat if I can avoid it, but I do like ending sessions on points of high tension. So we kind of did that. And the idea of ending on a point of high tension is that you give the players that suspense and anticipation for the next game session. So the players were spending lots of time in our Discord channel discussing how to avoid death and defeat their enemy. And it was very interesting and fun as a dungeon master to observe that playing out. Now, someone might be here and be like, oh, it's metagaming. Yeah. Okay, whatever. We were having fun. It was enjoyable. So yeah, let's just calm down a little bit. All right, so Verge of TPKing, next game session starts up, and Kasim the Cleric sacrifices himself, plunging his sword into his own belly, crying out to his god, the Horned One, for aid. Literally kills himself, hoping that his deity will help his comrades survive. And thus a minor benefit was bestowed on the group, removing the confusion effect that the Alkalith had and its damage resistance. Consider this a sort of small bone I tossed them for my mistake as a dungeon master in putting a creature like this in that was way harder than I intended. Now, I did tell my players not to expect this to be a precedence where you could just ask your deities for aid and then, of course, get it. This was a one-off exception that I was making because I put this crazy monster in the game. But don't expect that to happen every time you're in trouble. Now, at this second game session where we were mid-combat against this Alkalith, one of the regular players, Fizzletalk, couldn't make the game, so I had one of my Ancient Dragon Reserve players join us. His name was Delicate, and he was a Tabaxi bard. I think they were discussing how, because he was a Tabaxi and I like cats a lot, that he would somehow be immune and invincible and thus lead the day and help them win against this horrible creature. So, at the very beginning of the game session, Tentacle tentacles pulled Fizzletalk through this portal into the abyss, and then this same tentacle monster burped Delicate out into the room, where he landed in a pile of like slobber and had to acclimate himself to this horrible combat going on around him. Oh, these tentacles had nothing to do with the fungi monster at all. The tentacle monster is an ongoing theme in my game that I use to explain absent players, which are pulled off stage by the tentacles, and a stand-in player in this case, which is put on stage by the tentacles. The goal here is not to introduce new players in some sort of dramatic, well, I guess that's a little bit dramatic, but story becomes a backseat here, and the whole goal is to get the player into the action as quickly as possible. I make it a point to sacrifice story and realism for gameplay in situations like this. No one wants to sit out swaths of the game for the sake of story and having the perfect introduction. I think they'd rather just be playing the game. Okay, so we have the Tabaxi Bard, Delicate, standing in for Fizzletalk, the wizard gnome, and he decides to cast Hunger of Hadar, which is a large 20-foot radius spell that would hit everyone in the party, including all of the other players' characters. And as we read this spell, we all begin to realize that it would damage everyone, including the good guys, even probably killing 3 of them because of how wounded they are. So I described the blackness and cold, slimy tentacles from this spell caressing the other player's arms and legs. And then the Tabaxi, because we all realized that this would kill everybody almost, immediately dropped the spell, it was concentration, before anybody could get hurt by it. In the Tabaxi's defense, he wasn't really sure who all the enemies were because he had just kind of gotten burped up into the middle of this combat. However, a bigger point here is re-emphasizing this idea that players should learn what their spells do, learn what their characters can do, learn what their abilities are before the game starts. Knowing thyself and what your character can do might help you avoid little mistakes on your first night that might cause you to TPK the entire party. At the end of the day, we all had an awesome laugh over it. It was tons of fun, and nothing really horrible resulted from it. And after this little snafu, the party continued attacking the Alkalith, doing loads of damage, and ended up defeating it before it even had a chance to act on its turn in combat. So at the end of the day, all of their worry over dying was misfounded. In fact, most of my groups get tough challenges like this one, and they almost always freak out and are like, doom, doom, and then they almost always figure out a way to survive. And it doesn't necessarily mean that I intervened at all. Like, they just literally freak out because they think it's dire, but they somehow manage to pull out a win. Well, almost always. Don't forget to follow me over on Twitch, where you can ask me your Dungeon Master questions and watch me play D&D with my own groups. Let me know in the comments the spell you cast before you really knew what it did. Next week, I'll be talking about different types of problem players and how to handle them. But until then, click right here to see what happened when my players encountered an Intellect Devourer at level 1. And until next time, let's play D&D.